Right, okay, very quick introduction, let's get on with it. Some of you guys have been here for half an hour. I'm Allegra Stratton, I work on BBC Newsnight. To my left is Mark Hoban. Once upon a time you were at the Treasury for 2 years, now you're at the DW. What are you doing?
Was at DWP.
Where are you now? You're at the Treasury?
Backbencher.
Right, okay, forgive me. I have to do kind of top trump cards all the time to remember where these guys have gone. Deirdre, you are also known as White D. You're on a programme called Benefit Street, and we will talk to you a bit more about your experiences of being on benefits. And then to my right is Steve Hughes. He's the big brain at Policy Exchange on welfare and economics and social policy. So what we're going to do is kick off with each of them giving 5-minute presentations, and the question they are answering is what more needs to be done to help people into work. And there are a series of subheaders about the principles that underpin a modern welfare state and so on, so we'll get into that. But obviously that's 3 of them, 15 minutes, hopefully that leaves 45 minutes for good questions, so think of them now. Who'd like to go first?
What about Steve? Steve can go first.
Over to you, Steve.
I'll happily go first. Good morning, everybody. It's nice to see you all here this morning.
Can you get down to me?
Oh, yeah, I can do it. Okay. Is that better for you? Okay. It's nice to see you all here this morning. I assume you're here to see what I've got to say about Policy Exchange's work on work programme commissioning zones. But I'll keep my comments brief because I know we want to get on to the Q&As and things like that. Policy Exchange has done a lot of research over the last 2 or 3 years on the welfare state, and in particular how to make the welfare state suitable for the 21st century. And that includes how to get more contributions into the welfare system so it reflects better what you put into what you get out, as well as understanding how the government can make savings in the long term as well from the welfare state. But in terms of this topic, the work we've done is on greater personalisation. And what we mean by personalisation is taking better account of individual needs within the welfare system. And it's only by doing this and taking account of individual circumstances will we better be able to support people into work. Now, there are 1 million people claiming unemployment benefit in the UK today, and each one of those people will have different circumstances, different set of needs and different abilities within the labour market as well. At one end of the spectrum you have a group of people who might have just been made redundant, but who have got skills, they've got a work history, and they'll find it relatively easy to get back into work and they won't actually need that much help from the state at all. But at the other end of the spectrum you've got a group of people who are further from the labour market, and it's much harder for those people to get a job. And those people might suffer from multiple disadvantages or multiple obstacles to getting into work. So that could be anything from low skills to mental health issues, to disability, to family breakdown. Any of those issues can create barriers to work, and it's important for us to understand how we can best address those people and those people's needs in enabling them to get back into the labour market. And that is really what we need and what we mean about state support and supporting employment. And crucially, it's all about sustainable employment as well. We don't really know that much about the data of onflows and offlows of job seekers allowance to people receiving it and then going off and finding a job. But we can roughly say that around 2/3 of people who are claiming job seekers allowance within the first 6 months of that claim, they won't get sustainable employment. And what they'll do is they'll cycle in and out of work, so they'll get a bit of temporary work here or a bit of temporary work there, but they won't necessarily get sustained employment. And the crucial question for public policy is how we get those people into sustained employment. So how do these people helped at the moment? Well, they are helped, and they're helped by numerous different bodies, but one of the problems is that these bodies aren't integrated and they're not very joined up. So a claimant of job seekers allowance might interact with a local authority, a charity, a work programme provider, health services or the job centre, and each of these bodies might not have nothing in common other than they're treating the same person. They might not know each other exists, and they might not know what is being done to try and help this claimant into work. And it's that lack of joined upness, if I can call it that, that creates a problem in helping people back into work. So that's the problem. People face multiple problems getting into work, and the system as it stands doesn't necessarily help them do that. So what's the solution? Well, we can look to other countries to find solutions potentially. And the first is ensuring that the job centre is fit for purpose and making sure that it helps people get into work. In Canada, for example, they've got something called Service Canada, which ultimately acts as a single point of contact for the state and citizens. So if a citizen needs anything, it goes to Service Canada to find out what it can do for them. Where Service Canada can't help these people, it passes them on to programme providers who can do. But it's all very well having a central point of contact if we can't ascertain the job seeker's needs when they enter the job centre. And this is what is absolutely crucial. So in Australia, when somebody enters a job centre, they have something called a job seeker classification instrument, and it's a questionnaire, essentially. And it's a questionnaire that establishes what the claimant's barriers to work are and how they can be helped, and then it siphons them off into a different area of support. In the UK, what happens is somebody goes into a job centre and they're asked about their work history, and they're asked about their age and the benefit history as well, and that's roughly it. We need to be more sophisticated in the way that we deal with job seekers so we can actually get them the help that they need. And really, that kind of diagnostic tool of trying to establish what barriers a job seeker faces is absolutely crucial, but it's just not that easy to develop. DWP have called it the holy grail of employment support, but unfortunately, despite testing, we're not actually that close to understanding what this instrument could look like, but really that is the future of employment support.
Okay, Deirdre, you next, and if you could just reflect on some of the things that Steve was talking about at the end there about this Australian idea and a more tailored questionnaire when you go to the job centre, but also are the Tories reforms helping you?
Morning, everybody. Obviously, I do agree with quite a lot of what you said, Steve, and I was beginning to think that you'd maybe stole my notes. No, I'm only joking. The welfare system is a real difficult one in this country. Basically, I think that when you do end up as part of the system, you are completely forgotten about. I really think what we're going to have to do is concentrate more on the kids of today, school leavers. We have to try and stop them leaving school and automatically going straight into the system that they will get stuck in for years and years and years. I've got an 8-year-old and I really don't hold out much hope for him in 10 years' time when he leaves school. There's just constantly news, he's just losing jobs. City Council's got to lose another 6,000 jobs, the phone company's closed down, that's another 4,000 jobs going. I mean, in 10 years' time, will there actually physically be any jobs out there for our kids? I think basically what the government probably has to work really hard on is more apprenticeships or training schemes. I mean, I was on what was a youth training scheme, and I don't think there's any of them around anymore. And also with regards to job centres, I think they do actually have to get more in touch with the real person. I've experienced some not very nice job centres at all. And you do just go in, you sit down, you look down upon, and I think they just need to sort of understand that just because you're on benefits doesn't mean that you're not a real person. Just because you're on benefits doesn't mean that you're not physically looking for a job. I just think it's a shame that we have to look to other countries to improve our system. I mean, not so long ago we didn't have such a bad system, but I don't know. It's one of them ones, isn't it?
When was it a good system? And this government's been in for about 4 years. Have you noticed any change? Has it been...
I have noticed a change. I think it's considerably got worse. I think, it's this sanctioning, this introduction of this sanctioning. I think people are too quick to sanction, people who are looking for jobs. And I think you do have to sort of deal with it on an individual basis. I'm not disputing that there are people out there who are very happy to sit at home and receive their benefits and not physically look for a job. But I know people who look for, who apply for 20, 30 jobs a week. You can't force an employer to give you a job. So what you have to do is make sure the resources are there to enable the job seeker to get a job. Be a bit more realistic with what kind of schemes are available to them, because not everybody wants to work in an office or build a wall. I think it's more about getting in touch with the real world and what the real person wants to do and what they can do, and working on that, I think.
So with you and your situation, were there jobs that they asked you to do and you said, I can't do them?
No, there wasn't, because I think if you really want to do a job, then But it's obviously, I can't build a wall, so it's pointless sending me for a job as a bricklayer. But I wouldn't object to...
Did they do that?
No, they didn't. But I wouldn't object if I was interested in building walls to going on a course.
Training.
Exactly, training courses, they need to be sort of improved a bit and made a bit. But I wasn't given one bit of information at all with regards to where I could go, what courses were available. They tend to just leave people to sort it all out for themselves. You know, not everyone has got access to the internet, you know, you have to be realistic. People have children, you know, they can't attend every single appointment. It's like if your child's ill, my priority is my child. And then they're just sanctioned, that's the big word, isn't it, at the moment, sanctioning.
But listen, that's sanctions, and we'll come on to that in a second, and I reckon Mark will want to respond on it. But there's another question about this idea that actually, for many people, being on benefits they're better off than doing some low-paid job. What is your feeling about that?
Not for many people. I mean, some people would see it that way, but obviously, I agree with you. It's not fair that someone works a 40-hour, you know, if not more week, and doesn't have as much to live on as someone who sits at home, doesn't work, and is given money from the government. But obviously that's not that individual's fault, that is the government's fault. So I think the government has to also look at minimum wage and things like that. It's, you know, it's the government that says how much someone's entitled to live on. Yeah. Not the individual. So
right, well, over to somebody who I thought was still in the government. You are for these purposes, not joking. As from the eminent places on the backbenches, Mark Hoban, what do you make of some of those comments?
Well, I think both Steve and Deirdre made some really important comments about how we need to make sure the welfare system works to get more people into work. And Deirdre's absolutely right. There is an issue when people don't feel they're better off working. And I've been to job centres and sat down with advisors who have spent sort of 15 minutes trying to work out if someone's going to be better off working than, say, on benefits. And I think unless you instantly know you're better off working than not working, I think it's a real challenge getting people into work. And that's why I think one of the fundamental reforms that we're working through at the moment is universal credit, which actually simplifies the benefit system. It makes sure that people will know they're better off working than not working. And actually, once they're in work, they will know they're better off increasing their hours and increasing their earnings rather than just staying where they are. And so we do need to get the financial side of it absolutely right. People need to know instinctively they are much better off at work than on benefits. I think the second point I'd make is, and both Deirdre and Steve have touched on it, is about personalisation. And we do need to work harder, I think, to make sure people get the support they need to find a job that meets their needs. And it's about the skills that they have, the skills that they'll need to go into the workforce. And Steve was right, the personalisation tools that DWP are looking for, are the holy grail. I've been to Australia, I've seen some of the things they do there. It's hugely important, I think, to make sure we understand what the barriers to work are for people. And I think as we continue to see unemployment fall, we need to think about who's left behind, who is it that can't get a job, and what is actually quite a buoyant labour market where we've seen the private sector create 2.1 million new jobs, where the number of people in work has gone up by 1.8 million since May 2010, and actually where unemployment in the West Midlands is falling, there's lots more people being able to find work. There are going to be issues about who is actually left behind, and that's why I think the work programme, which is a big reform for us, actually started that journey towards focusing the amount of money we invest in people on what their level of need is. And the results in the work programme the first 2 years show actually it's been very effective getting people into employment. It's where it's been less effective, there are people perhaps who've been on employment support allowance, people ex incapacity benefits, and that's I think a sign that we need for the next stage of the work programme to really refocus our efforts, trying to work out what are the health barriers getting people into work. Are there issues around addiction? Is it around lack of skills? So if we can remove those barriers, we'll get more people into employment. And that's, I think, what we need to try and focus on over the course of the next Parliament. Because we can't, if those people who can work, we should be getting them into work. And we need to recognise, actually, some people will need more help with that journey than others. And just on your point, Deirdre, about young people, I mean, the announcement we made this week about funding extra apprenticeship places by saying to young people they can't claim unemployment benefit, JSA, for the first 6 months, I think gets the balance right. It's about getting more people into work, giving more young people opportunities, and not just, you're right, the whole range of opportunities out there for people. And apprenticeships these days, when I was growing up in the northeast, apprenticeships would tend to be in the coal mine, steel industry, shipbuilding. Now you can be an apprentice in an advertising company, a nursing home, a hotel and restaurant business, engineering. There's a whole variety of jobs and occupations out there. We need to get more young people matching their skills and aptitudes with those jobs, because if they get a job they want to do, they'll stick with it.
Definitely.
Did you hear over the weekend that the Tories are, as Mark set out, they're saying for 18 to 21-year-olds, if you don't get a job in the future, you won't get benefits?
I didn't hear it now, but obviously I've just heard it now. But it's one of them.
I saw your eyebrow. I saw your eyebrows shoot up. Because how many kids have you got?
I've got 2, but obviously football was on at the weekend, so I'm more interested. No. But I've got 2, and I have actually got one who's just gone into sixth form college. It's again, isn't it? It's trying to find the right balance. But should you sort of, penalise them if they can't get a job? It's like, even because once again they could do an apprenticeship, whatever, and still not get a job. So you're going to penalise them then for 6 months. It's again, you have to look at the individual. You can't just say automatically after 6 months you will not be able to receive any benefits. If there's nothing there for them at the end of this scheme, then that's not their fault.
What we don't want to do, though, Deirdre, is to get a situation where someone leaving school at 17 or 18 thinks the automatic choice is to sign on. What we want to do is get people to go into education and training. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Tell us about is it Caitlin?
It is, yeah.
Right, so tell us, what's her attitude to benefits and to some of these things?
Caitlin's attitude towards benefits is, well, she doesn't have an opinion with regards to them, because I've never sort of inflicted them on her. She knows where she's going. She's doing FA football training coaching. She's said that's work experience. She's been doing that for about 6 months, so she's getting her little work experience wage for that. She's doing her Big Tech Sports. That's a 2-year course. So obviously, she knows where she's going and she will actually get there.
Yeah.
But it's like at the end of the day, isn't it? If something happens, God forbid, she wants to do sports, you don't know what's going to happen in 2 years. If there's nothing available to her, what can she do, or where can she sort of go?
So she said to you, Mum, I think I'm probably going to have to sign on. What would you say to her?
Hand on heart, I don't think, her frame of mind, she probably wouldn't say that to me, because she's got, she's sort of got a couple of avenues where, she wants to do this, and if that doesn't work, she'll do that, and because she's not one of the, she's not a type of person who doesn't want to do anything. So I think I'm kind of blessed in that way. So
brilliant. Just talk to us quickly. The Channel 4 did this programme, and they spent 18 months with you.
Yeah.
Did you know that it was going to be such a hit, and why do you think it was a hit?
Yeah, like you said, they did spend 18 months filming with us. There's no way did I ever think it had caused the reaction that it did. But I do think, then again, like I keep saying, they didn't tell us it was going to be called Benefit Street till 2 weeks before.
What did they say it was going to be called?
Well, they asked people. It was supposed to be about community spirit. They said it was going to be like a year on James Turner Street. That's what it was supposed to be called. Well, yeah, naivety, I suppose, but I'm not going to be naive again. But it's one of them, isn't it? It's like, I will not watch a programme that's based on people on benefits, because they're going to get ridiculed and belittled, and they leave themselves open to all sorts of comments.
Did you feel that's what happened?
Oh, completely. Well, it is what happened, isn't it?
It wasn't accurate.
Well, it's editing, isn't it? I know I keep saying it's down to good editing. It wasn't accurate at all, because they focused on 5 people who are on benefits. It's like there's more than 5 people in this country on benefits, and everyone's on it for a different reason, different purpose, and so no, it wasn't.
Right, come on then, everyone in the audience. One hand's come up over there. I'm going to take one question and then an answer, because I hate it when people take 3 questions, because it just allows the panel to avoid answering them. Go on then, give us your name.
Yeah.
So, Alex Ward, local Conservative, big fan of Benefit Street and White D, love the show. But this is, in the real world, I employ 120 people. We started an apprenticeship scheme this year, and I saw the following problems, and I think this is where both society and the government come in. The one problem I saw was just the basic 3 R's, in that we had over 50 people apply for the apprenticeship scheme, and I had real trouble just meeting people who could read, write and just speak reasonably clearly. I know they were 18-year-olds, but as I say, all I wanted was someone that I could have a chat with and nice. So I think that's a problem, is the 3 R's and how we do it. And one kid told me he had no maths teacher from the age of 13 to 16, and it's just substitutes, and we're a first world country. So that's one problem. And the question I've really got though, and this is to White D, is we also had a problem in that the National Apprenticeship Scheme is very good at organising phone interviews and checking candidates and giving money for employers to make it happen. But we had 20 people confirmed for interview, post-application, post-phone interview, 6 turned up to those 20 interviews. Now, I don't know if it's because they suddenly had paperwork that meant they were entitled to something. I don't know that. And I don't know if it's because transport is difficult to our place because of property prices were far at the time. But how do we make 20 confirmed interviews have 20 candidates come?
I mean, that is really bad, because obviously if you take, you know, I personally, if you'd have took the, oh, he's gone. Sorry. If you took the time to apply for a job, I presume, you know, you'd have been interested in the job. But I think that's kind of a job centre thing as well. People are applying for jobs. You have to apply for so many jobs a week and prove that you've applied for so many jobs a week. But I do think in that situation, if they just don't bother to turn up to the interview, then maybe, yes, that is a reason for sanctioning them, because I think that does show that they're not too serious about getting into employment. But I totally agree with you as well about, like, it's the education thing, isn't it? It's like my daughter, you know, she had trouble with maths teachers for over 2 years, and that happened when she was just about preparing for her GCSEs. And I think that, you know, you've got to be more stable in the schools, and you do have to ensure that children can read, write and, you know, do arithmetic is the other R, isn't it? Before they do actually leave school. But yeah, it's one of them, isn't it? It's not right that you should, you know, an employer as well is wasting time by, you know, inviting these people for interviews and then they're just not turning up. So I think sanctioning in that case is probably, you know, well founded.
Steve wants to come in on it.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like a broken record, but this Australian system, the Australian system in its questionnaire when it interviews the job seeker asks about phone contactability, asks about access to the internet, and it finds out about how they can actually travel to a job as well. So it ascertains those barriers to work and tries to overcome them so people can actually engage with employers. And just the second thing I'd like to say on the apprenticeships point is that actually, although we've had a bit of a go at job centres, some of them, and this is always the case when you have a central system across the entire UK, it's always going to be patchy, but some of them engage really well with local employers. So local employers engage with the job centre, they tell them what skills they need, they tell them what kind of people they need to come into their business to help them run it better. But in other areas of the country, businesses have lost complete faith with the job centre because the job centre sent them people that were completely unacceptable for the positions that were available, and that needs to be better across the entire country.
So just and following up from that, I think that's a really important point about making sure you get the right people for the right employers, and it does make sure if you get the right people for the right job, they will stay there and stay there for a long time, not drop in and drop out of work. I think just on the issue of sanctions, you know, there's a contract between the taxpayer and people looking for work. The taxpayer pays job seekers allowance, so someone looks for a job. You know, the clue is in the title. You know, so taxpayers expect job seekers to do everything they can to find a job within reason. And I think actually if you're getting people not turning up to a confirmed interview, that's the sort of grounds which people should be sanctioned, because they're not doing what we would expect them to do to find a job, which is take up opportunities like the ones that you're offering. And so I think sanctions do play an important part in the benefit system. They have done since the benefit system was set up back in the last, almost 100 years ago. There needs to be a series of measures to support, whether it's payments to courses, whether it's job seekers allowance. If you don't make the most of those opportunities, then it's right that the taxpayer expects you to lose some of your benefit.
Deirdre, I think in the programme somewhere, in that 18 months of filming, you said to another chap on the street, you get letters, but nothing ever happens, don't worry about it. Is that fair?
Do you know something that was regards to the bedroom tax, good old bedroom tax?
Basically.
Yeah, I'll just keep moving this around. It's like, it's obviously, he went into, that was editing again. I'm not saying ignore the letter. What I'm saying is, obviously this letter's saying, we're coming to throw you out of your house in 2 weeks. When I'm saying to him, no, they won't throw you out in 2 weeks. There's a process they have to follow. And I think, you know, there are a lot of people who can't read and can't write, and they do get scared when they get letters like this. And it's just a shame that, you know, it is scare tactics, but it's just a shame that, you know, you've got to take it to someone. I mean, I know it looked like it was like working the system, but it wasn't. It was just trying to reassure him, no, you don't have to pack your bags and go and live on the street.
Yeah.
You know, it's like they have to follow procedure before they can actually throw you out. But he went, spoke to the job centre, they helped sort it out for him, and that's sorted. But, you know, that wasn't up to me to do that.
Right,
But
okay.
I'm not going to say no.
Yeah, fine. All right, there's the lady here, then there's John at the back. So we'll take this one and then John McTurnan's question. Don't worry, I've seen every hand. I have.
Maeve McGoldrick from URSA, which is Employment Related Services Association. Question on conditionality, because it's been raised, and a lot of our members who deliver back to work support have very mixed views about the effectiveness of conditionality, the regime itself. So my question to you is, do you think the system as it stands is effective at engaging job seekers, or can you think of other ways of more effective engagement? So for example, time limiting benefits is a form of conditionality. The benefit cap is a form of conditionality. It's putting limits on the benefits that we receive. So it's just a question about engagement and effectiveness. That the Treasury has a very different view of conditionalities to protect the public purse. The DWP and the advisors to deliver support is about compliance with a set regime, and the individual themselves is about ensuring they get their benefits and they have to follow a set of actions, and I'm not sure that's the most effective way. Maybe we should all be looking at benefits or conditionality from the same perspective.
Mark.
Well, you know, I think one of the issues is, you know, there needs to be a very clear understanding on the part of job seekers about what is expected of them. And one of the things that we've done, the department has done as a consequence of rolling out universal credit, is a new claimant commitment. Very clear set of expectations between the job seeker and job centre about what someone will do. And you know, the evidence is that it actually has really increased engagement. People are looking for more jobs. It's been more effective. That's a form of conditionality. It's setting some very clear criteria about what we expect you to do in return for the money the taxpayer gives you. And I think conditionality is a really important part of the system, but it's there to help in terms of setting out some clear actions and to manage the process.
Deirdre.
I mean, I agree as well with like time restrictions, because I think, you know, you do need to monitor the, you know, people more closely, because if you're just left at home to sit at home for months on end without having to, you know, to actually physically look for a job, then there are some people out there that will do it, not a lot of people. But I totally agree as well. It's, you know, it is in the title, isn't it? It is job seekers, but it's how many jobs do you have to sort of seek? And again, it's, you can't force someone to offer you a job. You can, you know, you can apply for as many jobs as you want, and you know, it's one of them sort of them awkward ones, isn't it? Because there are people who want jobs and there are people who don't. And I think if someone doesn't, you know, actively seek jobs for 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, then there is something wrong there. So I can see where you probably would issue them a restriction in that hand. It's trying to get the balance, isn't it, of finding out who actually does want to find work and who doesn't want to find work.
Yeah.
So,
Steve, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, in quite a boring techie answer,
Just put this.
So I don't think really there'd be many people that would disagree with some kind of conditionality within the welfare state. There's got to be some kind of relationship there between the state and the person who's collecting benefits in what they're doing to actually receive payment. I think the problem comes is when you introduce a new system, and just from a practical implementation point of view, we just don't know, we're involving real people, frontline advisors, etc., and getting them to implement the system can create problems. And it's only after we've implemented these systems that problems arise. And we take a look at something like the benefits cap or something like that. So we have things called discretionary housing payments, which act as a transitional measure for people who are receiving less in benefits payments than they were before. What happens after those transitional payments run out? Do the benefit claimants know what happens after that, or do they not? Do they have problems with reading and writing? And that's where the real problem of implementation comes, because when we're moving from one system to a new system, do we fully understand the effects on the people claiming the benefits?
Okay, John at the back there.
John McTurnan, I was a speaker at a previous policy exchange meeting. My question is about the administration of the DWP. So a lot of people are sanctioned and they have the right to appeal, but before they can appeal, they have their decisions reviewed, and those reviews can take longer than the sanctions actually taking effect. Governments have driven down IVB invalidity benefit, incapacity benefit, and ESA numbers consistently for years. They've just started to go back up again. There's something going wrong in that system. And finally, PIP, the new payment that's replacing disability or DLA, there's now months and months of waiting before people get their applications considered. Isn't there something going incredibly wrong in the DWP administration? And how can you expect claimants to owe responsibility to a department that's actually not processing claims effectively?
Mark.
Well, I think, John, the reality is the department processes millions of transactions every day seamlessly without a problem. And we have seen significant reform to DWP over the course of the last 4.5 years. Some of the success stories don't get covered, so the new child maintenance system's been very effective, come in without a glitch. People don't talk about the effective implementations. And yes, there are some challenges when you introduce new systems, but part of the process of reassessing people on incapacity benefit, which was started under the previous government launched employment support allowance, is to make sure we actually give support, financial support, to those in the most need, and actually those who we think can work should work. And I think the review of incapacity benefits and ESA claimants is really important to make sure that we give the support to the right people and try and find as many people as possible who we think can get back into work and give them the help to do so.
Big brain from Policy Exchange. Steve, what do you make of John's question?
Look, there's obvious problems in the transition from an old system to a new system. If we go back to the sanctions regime in particular, I think it's quite obvious that something isn't going quite right there. And it's not going quite right because a lot of appeals are being overturned when people are being sanctioned. But when they're going through the appeal, they lose their benefit payments, and that puts these people incredibly hard up. We've done a paper called Smarter Sanctions, which suggests that you should be softer on sanctions, the government should be softer on sanctions in the near term, i.e. they should get warnings, essentially. And as the warnings progress, then the sanctions become more serious. So it's more of a progressive system, rather than just making one mistake or having one problem where one part of the conditionality isn't met and having your benefits removed. It should be more proportional. And I think that would be a much better move than having just a strict kind of cliff edge of removing benefits.
There's lots of hands that have gone up, but just for a second I'm going to lower the tone. Deirdre, I'd like to know which of our political leaders do you think talk to you most directly about your experience and benefits? I mean, this morning on the radio they're saying there'll be massives of welfare cuts announced by George Osborne this afternoon. You probably won't have heard it. When you do hear things like that, how do you feel?
Obviously, it's I am interested in the news and stuff that that will affect like friends of mine or members of my family or and things like that. It's like you have someone making someone who I think is completely out of touch with the real world making decisions on people who do actually live in the real world.
And who's that?
That's Ian Duncan Smith, isn't it? He's
the Secretary of State.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to reading his press release. I think it's just about being realistic, really, isn't it? It's like,
even though this is a man who's, in his words, trying to make work pay, so he's trying to address some of the things you are talking about and have talked about.
I think that's more, more on paper, but not in practice. It's easy to it's easy to present people with this is how it's going to happen, but 9 times out of 10 it won't actually work that way. And every time you're reintroducing a different policy or a different way of working, then the system's just going to end up completely, upside down again. I mean, how many, how hard is it really to find a system that does work?
And what do you make to, you've got 3 guys and you've actually got 4, including Nigel Farage, standing up and trying to speak for Britain. Which of them do you feel speaks for you?
Wow, I like to speak for myself, but Mr Farage doesn't seem to be doing a bad job. He's had a few extra members join him recently, hasn't he? It's one of them, isn't it? I like to make decisions depending on, what they're actually saying, but yeah.
So in the next election, you could go UKIP?
I very well could.
I don't think I've heard him talk about welfare.
He's been clever then, isn't he? So I think he's leaving it to everyone else just to dig a big hole for themselves, and then he'll swoop in and take over, yeah.
Right, we've got a cluster of 5 questions over here, and I probably can't take all of them. So, who most want? Right, lady in the pink top.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hello, my name is Kira Lawrence, and I work at the learning disability charity MENCAP in the campaigns and activism team. So I have a learning disability myself. I'm a media spokesperson for MENCAP, and I'm an ambassador for them, and I'm a campaigns assistant at the charity. So at the moment, 8 out of 10 people with a learning disability want to work and could work, but less than 2 in 10 people with a learning disability do work. This is because of things like being discriminated against, not getting the right support at the job centre, and this is something that I went through. I spent a year trying to get a job with the support of my family and just wasn't signposted to the right people, and it was so frustrating because all I wanted to do was earn money and have a job like everybody else in my family. So there's issues around people not getting the right access to disability employment advisors. That's exactly what happened to me as well. I wasn't told they existed until a year later. So what does the panel think can be done to make sure people with a learning disability can be properly supported to get into work?
Right, who'd like to go first?
I mean, I don't mind. I mean, it's. I don't think people should be discriminated against whether they, speak a different language, whether they've had a disability or anything like that. I mean, I do remember at one stage they took sexuality off application forms. I think it's regard to applying for a job. I think you should just have a basic set of, of questions. It doesn't matter, you shouldn't have to tick, have you got a disability? I think if you're more than capable of doing a job, then you should be offered that job, and then it's something you discuss afterwards. I do think things like that should be sort of put to the back, and and dealt with later by an employer. That's how I feel.
Steve?
Well, the only thing I'd say is you probably described far better than I did about the needs for personalisation and taking account of specific circumstances, because ultimately that's what it's all about.
No, I think that's absolutely right, and I think one of the challenges is trying to get more employers to come forward to offer jobs, and that's why I think the Disability Confidence campaign that departments run is a good thing, but also about providing support to people with learning difficulties when they're in work. One of the things I've seen is where you've got people who sort of mentor both the employee and the employer, trying to work out where there are problems, and trying to also make sure the job is designed to meet someone's capabilities and needs. So I think there's a lot more effort required in personalisation and tailoring to get more jobs out there for people with disabilities.
Deirdre, can I just ask you, did you, at various points in your life, did you do what some people, some cynics say, which is sort of do a kind of calculation and say, oh, well, I won't be better off in work, so I'm not going to do it? No. Did you never, ever do that?
No, the job centre did it on my behalf, because that's what they said. It's one of them, isn't it? What did they say? Your advisor, my advisor, personal advisor did it. And they do hand you like a great big wad of paper like that. And they actually do turn around and say, well, in reality, you need to get a job that's going to pay you £18,000 to be better off in work than not. Now, I've actually still got that at home, But if you're handing that to someone they will see it as an easy way out. They'll say, well, my advisor says you've got to pay me £19,000, or it's not even worth me applying for your job.
Steve, when will that end? It is ending.
Well, I suppose that this is what universal credit's all about. Right? I mean, this is trying to, when we're talking about being better off in work than on benefits, it's essentially making sure that when you move from one system to the other, then you're not penalised by just the way the system's set up.
But universal credit, it doesn't eliminate it, does it? It makes it less bad.
It doesn't eliminate it, but then again, we're talking about an incredibly complex system that's run from the centre and that's meant to help the needs of millions of people. I mean, we should always aim for a perfect scenario, but we're never going to get there. I mean, that's the reality of it. We just got to do the best we can. I mean, one of the problems is, I suppose, is that with all these initiatives, whether it's the job centres or just the kind of IT behind universal credit, all this stuff costs a lot of money. If you want personalised support for individuals, you're going to need to pay advisors to experienced advisors to give people this help. And again, in an era where we're cutting back on budgets and that kind of thing, it's difficult to justify when all departments are fighting over cash.
So Deirdre, Steve's setting out there a system that this government's trying to bring in that would eliminate some of the problems you're talking about, and that wodge would be smaller perhaps. You still
have a ballpoint figure though, won't it?
Right.
Yeah.
So that even though there's an attempt to try and overhaul that system, you still think you're still not.
But obviously, you can see you have to attempt it, don't you? You can't just not bother with it at all. I just think maybe, if you try and persuade people to apply for jobs without actually telling them you have to look for a job that's worth this, that and the other, and then obviously when they're in employment there are avenues that they can go to, for help, like childcare is very expensive, and rents are absolutely scandalous at the moment, and things like that. You have to sort of just pull it all in at once, and maybe leave telling them that bit until after, when they do actually apply for jobs. Because something like that would put people off applying for a job.
Yeah.
It's alright, it's a bit silly.
Right, I'm going to ask Emily for a question.
Hi, Emily Ashton from The Sun. I'm just wondering about your experience at Tory Party conference so far, and whether you thought twice even about appearing here.
Where are you from, sorry? The Sun?
Yeah.
Emily loves you, she told me last night.
And also what you make of David Cameron himself. Do you think he understands the problems benefit claimants face?
I think it's a privilege to be invited along this morning to talk. I'm not put off or anything, because it's an opportunity to come and to speak and to have your views heard. I mean, I don't know Mr Cameron personally, even though I've invited him, I've written to him on a few occasions and invited him to various different places, but he's always...
When have you written to him recently?
Well, we actually wrote to him when, when the series was shown, and then obviously I contacted him again when he did insist that he was going to look into me for fraudulently claiming benefits when he didn't realise I hadn't been on benefits for a few months. So that's a little bit misinformed, never mind. But no, it is really nice to be here. It's like, why shouldn't a normal person be invited to it doesn't matter what, Tory Party conference.
I don't think you're a normal person anymore.
No, I am a normal person. Well, it depends how you define normal, but yeah, I'm still a normal person.
Did that answer your questions then? Right, okay, this cluster's very persistent here, so I'm just going to go for the chap in... We're going to get you in, don't worry everybody. Right, chap in pink tie.
Thank you, my name's Luke, I'm a councillor from Daventry. I just wonder to what extent the panel would agree with me that the whole benefits debate seems like a bit of a red herring with education, the state of education as it is. If our schools are producing illiterate people who are therefore almost unemployable, then do we really have any right to sort of be outraged or frustrated by these people who take advantage of the system? Thank you.
Mark.
Well, that's because we don't just do down the education system. We actually have a lot of bright and talented young people come through schools with high levels of qualifications, good degrees, a lot of apprenticeships coming on. So it's absolutely right. It's part of our long-term economic plan to get education right. And it's we do need to get have well-educated young people if we're going to compete with the rest of the world. And so it's fundamentally important that we get education reforms right. What we do need to do is to make sure that if people leave school without functioning, without being able to do maths or English, we need to make sure the support's in there when after they leave school to catch up. Because it's a big barrier to getting people into work. And we want to get people into better skilled, higher paid jobs. So we do need to do that. But we can't approach the challenge that we inherited from the last government was huge. We can't just approach it on a sequential basis. We're going to make progress on all these fronts. So I think education reform is as vital as welfare reform if we're trying to sort out some of the challenges the country faces.
Deirdre? I mean, in reality, if you think about it, a child's in school for 11 years, surely after 11 years they should be able to, come out of the system with the basic, reading and writing skills. I'm here obviously because it's due to welfare, but I don't think education should in any way take a back seat to the welfare system at all. I think they should all be treated exactly the same. And yeah, you are right, it's like, it does start there. 11 years at school surely should give a child a little bit of a stepping stone for when they do enter the real world.
It sounds like Caitlin's well set up.
She's got a good mum.
Steve?
I don't think I've got anything to add to that, really.
All right, okay. Right, I'm going to go over there, but I'm coming back to this side. Lady in spotty dress, I've seen you in the pink shirt on the back.
Good morning everybody, my name's Louise and I'm a born and bred Brummie and I lived in Erdington until about 18 months ago, so I'm a normal person like you do. It was just really a question. I left secondary school, took a job cleaning and working as a waitress. Worked 2 jobs until I bought my first house and now work for a FTSE 100 company. So I've worked up from an area where I had a lot of friends and people around me who were within the benefit system. I guess the one thing that I find very frustrating is that I have a lot of people who say to me, I'm not doing that job's below me, I'm not waitressing, I'm not cleaning, I'm not doing those, and I was always pushed that whatever job was available that paid, you went and did it. And I'm very fortunate now that I'm in a very financial position. However, I've done those jobs and I'm grateful every day for the job I have. Your comments earlier when you were saying about if I went for a job, building a brick and I'm not a bricklayer, I just wonder whether perhaps we have a majority of people that are taking perhaps the wrong attitude and are being offered jobs that are perhaps seen as below them and not taking them, because when I worked in catering I tend to find that the people that were doing the very long shifts and the people that were coming in the very unsocial hours were people that weren't perhaps born and bred in Britain. And that's what worries me, is that I learnt that work ethic through doing hard work and now I'm grateful for it, but I'm just worried that there's some people around that don't seem to have that ambition to get on and perhaps have to start at the bottom but know that it's that first step to move up.
There's a lot of heads nodding.
I mean, I totally agree, but obviously, just me saying I wouldn't, go on a bricklaying course to build a wall doesn't mean that I wouldn't clean a toilet or I wouldn't, what I'm saying? It's like, you are right, I mean, as an individual, if you were that desperate for a job, you would take any other job, but you have to it's within, within your boundaries, isn't it? It's like, I could clean, I could cook, I could, but I can't drive, so it's pointless being a driver, but, and things like that. But, in your own mind as well, you have to be a little bit realistic. I'm sure an employer wouldn't want to employ me if he was building a house to, ensure that this house would stay up, but someone probably would employ me, to clean, but you are right, you do get people who think that job is, but no job's below anybody.
Did you ever
no
think
one's better than
that?
anybody.
Was there ever a job that you were offered when you thought, I don't want to do that?
There's been quite a few jobs since I've been in the public that there's no way I'd do, it's about, but I wouldn't even class, that's not like, I'm not going to go into that, but that's just stupid offers, you know what I mean? It's like, because people think that once you're in the public domain, they can just do anything for money, which is just ridiculous.
What have people asked you to do?
It doesn't matter.
Sounds like Strictly.
You'd do it, you'd do it.
Oh, no way, I can't.
Did that answer your question? Because it's sort of the heart of the matter, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's just frustrating because I know what it's like to live in an area where the helicopters are out every night, and I used to go to work in the morning with the only person looking to get on the bus at 8 o'clock, and it's really hard, and I thank God that I've had the opportunities to get where I've got to. But that said, I didn't go to university. I left school with my GCSEs, and I've just put in a lot of hard work, and that's what I would always try to impart on people. You may not have the opportunity to get all these degrees and wonderful opportunities, but hard work goes a long way, and I would give anybody a job that was willing to do it over somebody who perhaps has a qualification.
And I think that's a really powerful point, because I got really fed up when I was Employment Minister, listening to MPs, Labour MPs, slagging off jobs, saying it's only a shop job, it's only a cleaning job. Yet actually for a lot of people it's the first job that they get, and it gets them onto a ladder. And it's just interesting, you talk to people who are really committed to tackling youth unemployment. Patrick Dempsey, who runs Premier Inn, started off in the kitchens. And has now built a very big business that it takes a lot of people with no skills, been out of work for some time, gets them into work, get an NVQ level 2, now get up to NVQ level 7. But those jobs are entry jobs. It gets you onto the ladder. It shows to other employers you can work and are willing to work, have the attitude for work. And we should never be dismissive about those starter jobs, because they can lead to really great careers and really good opportunities.
Okay, just this gentleman in a pink striped shirt. I'm looking at you. We're looking at each other.
Hi, my name is Liam Billings. I'm from Ashton-on-Lyne. That area is in the top 10 for poverty according to Experian. One thing that I see when I'm out and about in Ashton is people who are unemployed who go about on what's called the circuit. It's one pub after another pub, and one pub even opens up at 8 o'clock in the morning because they know that people have got the benefits straight away. It's absolutely disgusting. I represent many hard-working people in my constituency who work hard, go to work at 9 o'clock, do long hours, but then you've got people on benefits spending it on fags and booze. To me, that's a luxury. Why is it we don't have a benefits card which restricts people what they spend their benefits on? It should go on the essentials first and not the luxuries. I've had to work hard to get the luxuries that I want in life. Why should people like you get fags and booze on the state?
People like me? Was that directed to me?
Well, people who are unemployed.
Yeah, so not people like me.
You were though.
I totally agree with you, but obviously people like me, I can't talk about other people like me, but I can actually talk about myself. I do prioritise, my children are my priority. I would never buy a packet of cigarettes above buying them a pair of shoes, but I understand there are people who would. But I do see where you're coming from as well. I don't think that's a bad idea of introducing maybe like a little card where you can, you ensure people do get their groceries, or you do ensure people do get their uniforms and things like that. But it's the individual, isn't it? Not every individual doesn't prioritise. I know I do prioritise, but it's one of them. How would you keep keep control over every single person on benefits and try and control what they actually spend their money on? It's
Stephen Mark, this card's been talked about. I think it's been looked at quite seriously, has it not?
I think it has been looked at quite often. I think there may be some legal issues around use it, but I think the other point I'd make is, if someone's on job seekers allowance, looking for a job is full-time work. They shouldn't have the time to go from pub to pub if that's what they're doing. And I think that's one of the new requirements under universal credit, is people should be spending 35 hours a week looking for work. And one of the things that the department has been looking at trialling is how do you create some facilities that people can go and look for work on a full-time basis in a supervised way, so people aren't able to be distracted from doing what they should be doing, which is looking for a job. That's what taxpayers are paying them to do.
I'm from Ashton, where universal credit is being trialled at the moment, and looking on the street, it doesn't seem to be working at the moment. That is not happening.
Mark, what were you suggesting there? That people stay with somebody all day, do they?
Well, no, I think just a question about if you think that the way in which we give support to people unemployed, we expect them to do a lot of their own job search at the start, Most people get to work quite quickly. As they spend longer unemployed, then we expect the level of support they get and that they take to intensify. So that's part of thinking about behind the work programme. The sort of post-work programmes that we introduced, again, up the level of support, up the level of commitment. And that's really quite important. And it's how do we make sure that people are doing what we expect them to do, which is look for work full time.
Steve?
Yeah, look, I mean, that's your own personal experience of what you've seen around your local area. And that might be one subset of benefit claimants. I don't think you can tar everybody with the same brush. I don't think that's particularly fair. The way the system should work is that if people are going out getting boosted up all the time, then they won't be able to meet their conditions and they'll be sanctioned from the benefits and they won't receive them. That's the way the system should work. Or they should be helped if they've got specific problems and specific barriers to work. All we can do is try and make the system work better for each individual circumstances. On the card idea, I mean, look, I think that we need to understand that I want people who are receiving welfare to actually have a stake in society. I don't want to have them be really, really punitive levels of payment so they can't engage in what a lot of other people can do just to live an ordinary life.
Right, okay. The gentleman in the pink shirt, blonde hair, yeah.
Thanks very much. George Grant, I'm the parliamentary candidate for Bradford West. My question really is for all the panel. In your personal and professional experience, what relationship there is between the government's welfare reforms and the growth in employment? Because obviously there's been remarkable growth in employment and drop in unemployment, but not quite so encouraging wage and productivity growth. And to what extent is that the result of people coming off benefits who weren't previously in work, and to what extent is it actually other sectors of the economy? Thank you.
Who wants to go first?
I don't want to go first.
Go on then, Steve.
So that is actually a very, very important question. It's something that's being debated at the minute, is that has the increase in the supply of labour been generated by the welfare cuts? And if you look at some of the evidence on what the welfare reforms have done, you can absolutely see that it's increased work incentives, as we define them, in that people who do receive welfare payments have increased their attitudes to looking for work. The problem is, it's very difficult to then understand how much of those people who do seek or take a greater role in seeking work for themselves actually achieve it. And the reason they don't necessarily achieve it is because there are other barriers in place. That, again, it's things like high childcare costs, it's things like transportation costs, it's things like that. So I've no doubt, there's little doubt about the fact that more people are trying to engage with the labour market, but there are question marks about how successful they're being in that.
Well, I think that the welfare reforms are actually crucial to this, because what I think has happened is our expectations, not necessarily about welfare cuts, but actually about the expectations are placed upon people to work. And if you look at both job seekers allowance, income support for lone parents, and sickness benefits, we've seen quite significant falls in the numbers claiming all three of those benefits. And I think that's about getting people into work. It's certainly the Bank of England have highlighted welfare reform as one of the reasons why unemployment has fallen so quickly. That we have created an atmosphere where people expect to get into work. If you look at each of the previous three recessions, you'll find unemployment hasn't risen as high in each of those three recessions as the conditionality is imposed. As we expect more of people out of work to find jobs, you actually find that unemployment doesn't hit the same peaks. And so I think actually we've got two things going on. We've got a really effective set of welfare reforms getting more people into work, and a very dynamic private sector that's created 1.8 million new jobs since May 2010.
Are you going to run for Parliament?
I don't, it's something I would think about, but obviously I wouldn't object to starting at the bottom. I wouldn't want to go straight in and have David Cameron's job, you know what I mean? I would work my way up, but, obviously, it's something I would think about it, because I am interested in politics, and I am interested in, normal people, and I am interested in the country, and...
So which party would it be?
I'd run for me. I'd create my own.
Now, this is probably a bit painful, but when it was talked about last, there was a Tory MP who's probably floating around here somewhere, not this room, but this
No,
conference.
it's not, because I've been looking for him.
Was he, right? And he said that you can't run for Parliament because you're not a good role model.
No, I think he said I was too common.
No, I don't think he did. I think
he did.
All right, okay.
I just think, it is a shame that some people actually think that that people would actually be too common. Just because you are a little bit common doesn't mean that you're stupid and that you wouldn't be able to have a good input. And I think the more common you are, the more in touch you are with the real people. So yeah, it would be something I'd consider.
Do you think you are a good role model?
I mean, who is a good role model? Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, what is a good role model? It's like, you can only do your best, can't you? And it's like, you can never be liked by 100% of people, and I think most MPs know that, don't they? But, it's one of them. It'd be an ideal, perfect world, wouldn't it? If if everyone was an amazing role model, or everyone was completely liked by everybody else. But you can, at the end of the day, my kids love me.
Yeah. Well, look, we're over, but let's carry on. This lady at the front who is really bursting.
Hi, just a quick question for you. You were quite offended when that guy over there said that you spent all your money on cigarettes.
Mm-hmm.
But that's how you've been portrayed on the telly, whether it be right or wrong. I really wanted to ask you, you have been on benefits for how long?
4 years.
And for what reason?
Because I did lose my job due to a criminal conviction, but I think I was more offended at the way that he said people like you, because I think that's damn right rude,
I
to
think
be
that's
honest
probably,
with you.
in his defence, it's probably the way that you've been portrayed.
No, because he doesn't know me, so he shouldn't really, you know what I mean? It's like people like you, I do think it was kind of rude, so, but I don't know people that go into pubs at 8 o'clock in the morning, so I've never been in a pub at 8 o'clock in the morning, so people obviously who live in his area are not people like me, but hey ho.
Okay, and you were on benefits for not being able to find work? Or?
No, believe it or not, I mean, it has been recorded. I did lose my job. The facts aren't 100% right, but I'm not going to go into it here. I had a nervous breakdown 6 months after my mum passed away. That's when I went on to ELA. I never claimed benefits for 2 years after I lost my job because I didn't feel I was entitled to them. So it was, it's about 4 years. So I haven't been on benefits my whole life. And obviously, like I said, even though now I don't class myself as working, I'm in receipt of an income, so I took myself off the system because obviously that's the right thing to do. So.
Cool, thank you.
Oh. There's a lady in the middle. Yes. It's impossible. I can hardly see your face. It's difficult to describe you. But you next, okay?
First of all, congratulations. I think you've done a great job climbing up like that. I would like to see the accountability shift a bit from the state for the young people. And it's not all about the state trying to get them the job that they actually vocationally want. But I think there should be some accountability with parenting. Because I think one of the things is we've got to tell our children, and we've got to set the example, that sometimes you can't always get the job you want, but you've got to do what you need to do to get the job you want, perhaps. You can't always train to do the job you want to do, but you've got to train to do the job that's available. And sometimes I think, when the gentleman said that, children are not coming out of school with all the right R's, and we as parents know the ability of our children.
What does accountability of parenting mean?
That we've got to actually guide our children sometimes to not have this kind of culture, which is tempting. It's easy to say, I have a daughter who's not very academic, but she's not going to get a job. She doesn't need to go to university. She needs to do something vocational and then start at the bottom somewhere, as this lady did. I think as parents, when you're 18 years old, it's easy to say, I don't want to do a cleaning job and I don't want to do this and that. But as parents, probably, she had parents who said, it's fine, do this, and then maybe you can do something else. You can study at night time. And I think it's always the state that needs to be helping the young people.
Okay, all right. Let's take two more. I'll break the rule because I can see someone at the back might be about to kick us all out. Have the chap in the mint green stripy tie, and then this guy here in the maroon one.
It's a question for Deirdre. Do you vote, and what do you think of Ed Miliband?
I do vote because basically I think if you want to have your opinion voiced, if you don't vote, then don't complain about the state of the country. Basically, it's not as if it's it's going to take you 3 weeks. You just go down. It's 10 minutes it takes a person to vote. What do I think of Edmund Hunt? I don't really know him personally either, but he didn't respond to one of my letters. It's. I mean, all I can say is at the moment we've got a really good local councillor, and she's really up on it. She's out there. She's a people person. She meets with the constituents, and I don't think I could ever remember when I last saw a Tory councillor or Lib Dem campaign.
What do you think of what you've seen of Emma Miliband on TV?
Come on.
I think it's like I'm not a massive fan of him either. It's a lot of it is just sort of like internal warring. They're constantly I'm going to say it, bitching at each other and this, that, that's the first swear word today. And it's like, it's just so childish, and I think, it really gets on my nerves. But...
Right, okay, this chap in the maroon tie.
Hi there, Paul Novell from Bethnal Green and Bow in East London. First of all, I want to say good on you for coming here and widening the debate and enriching it. I think more of this should happen at conference, and so absolutely good on you for doing it.
Thank you.
My question is about the London riots and the riots across the UK. When you saw this on the TV, I wondered how you personally reflected on it, how you think it might be linked to what the government is doing, and also how far you think we've now come, and that's a wider question for the panel.
I mean, sorry, obviously I live right by the 3 young Asian lads who were killed during the riots. I think, I don't think the riots had anything to do with the government personally. I think it was just these young kids jumping on the bandwagon, completely bored, thought, tell you what, let's join in and, do what everyone else is doing. I mean, it's absolutely disgraceful. It's like, that you have to lock your children in the house, because we were smack bang right in the middle of it. It's like, something happened. I don't know, I mean, I can't work out what mindset someone would be to decide to go and set fire to shops or drive cars into people, or, to go into a shop and just come out with loads of trainers, this, that and the other. And I don't think that's a parenting issue either. I think that's it's all these gangs and groups of people that just saying, London's doing it, boom, let's go and do it in Birmingham and stuff. But obviously three young lads lost their lives, and, they were friends. I know one of their brothers, and it's just not nice, is it, that something like that has to just go down the whole of the country. It's just a free ride, isn't it, for just a certain group of children, but...
it had nothing to do with government cuts at all. It's criminality. Because actually the people they were harming were their family and neighbours, as Deirdre just pointed out. And it was their communities they were destroying. It wasn't about the government, it was just criminality. Just on the point about parents, I think it's a really important point, because I think that one of the issues that employers talk about is, are people work ready? Do they know what's expected when they go to work? Do they know they're expected to turn up on time, to do what they're told to do, to dress smartly, and dress appropriately for their jobs? Often that's the responsibility of parents. There's real challenges actually where young people don't have a role model, and who steps in their place to provide that role model. And that's, I think, one of the challenges we need to look at when we talk about young people into employment. Those who don't have good role models, who actually mentors, who helps them get into work.
Right, we've now been told we've tried it on for 10 minutes and we have to wind it up, so there we are. I'm sorry about that, because there were so many questions still to answer. Thanks to everybody, to Mark Hoban, Deirdre and to Steve Hughes. Thank you very much.